you go. Okay, well, welcome everybody who's here. You are at the Launch Your College Application Workshop hosted by Schooling Doula and 7 Points Prep. I'm so glad to see each of you here. Our big goal for today is to put school and activities and testing and all those things behind us for a moment and focus on you and your future and your story that you're going to tell colleges about how awesome you are and what you have to bring to their campus. And we're going to focus on launching your college applications, giving you an overview of the application itself, and then taking a minute to look at your activities and how you're going to put those forward to colleges. So glad you're here. We're going to go about 90 minutes of content and activities, and then we'll have some time for question and answer at the end. We do invite you to have a pen or a pencil and some paper available to take some notes, to do some doodles, to do some sketching, to do some imagining, to do some dreaming. And if you need to take a minute now to go get that, that is awesome, no problem. We're also going to be using a workbook that goes along with this workshop, and you should have a link to that, and you can open that up now. And if you like to have something physical to write on or follow, I invite you to pause and go get or do a print that workbook so that you can have that to write on. Everybody's choice. Okay, glad you're here. All right, so okay, so overview of the college application. Big idea is, yes, you fill out forms and put in information and write essays, but the big idea is that it's a puzzle with many different pieces, but together, when you stand back and look at the whole puzzle, it's a beautiful picture of you and lots of different components of you. So we're going for a coherent picture, or imagine a puzzle all put together, hanging on the wall, that fits together. Many different pieces together make a picture that we can see. And so you might not end up putting every piece that is you in the college application, but you want to include everything that's really, really important about you. And so today we're going to think about, what are those really key, important parts of you that you want to make sure are in the puzzle of you that is presented in your college application. Let's see, I was going to say, when I first heard about this idea of applications being a coherent picture or a coherent narrative or a coherent story about a young person, I thought, people when they're 16, 17, 18 years old are exploring and they're meandering on lots of different paths. Like, that's what we're doing, right? We're not necessarily born to go one way, one direction, and have a coherent narrative to tell about ourselves. So you might feel like, well, I'm not coherent. I have all sorts of interests. I have all sorts of things I've done, all sorts of parts of me. And so that's totally normal and awesome. And as we do this process of reflecting on your strengths and reflecting on the pieces of you, I promise that by this time next year, you will feel more like you do have a coherent narrative to tell about you and what you are going to bring to a college campus. That's the process that we're going to be engaging in, is finding what is that story that you have to tell that knits together all of the pieces of you. All right. So there are some main components of a college application. And as I said, altogether, it tells the story of you. You want to think about, what do colleges need to know about you? Okay. And in the college application, they give you these ways to present it: your personal information and your family background, who your parents are, where they went to school, where you live, what high school you go to. They ask you about your transcript. That's another section of the application. Another is your activities list. Then there's the letters of recommendation from your counselor and your teachers. And then there's the personal statement and supplemental essays. And all together, those create a pie or a picture, a story, a puzzle, whatever metaphor works for you, of you. So in your workbook, you will find this document that has all of the components of the application worksheet in it. And I invite you to turn to that if you'd like, or just look at it here on the screen and look it over. This is a fleshed out table of all of the things that I was telling you in that previous slide, the facts about you, your writing, the letters about you. And then if you are a person who has interests beyond the classroom, there are other ways to share that information with colleges. You can submit a portfolio, you can submit video, you can submit different information about academics and leadership and things like that. So as you're looking that over in your workbook, I'm remembering that the first page of the workbook, sorry, my arrows decided to stop working, going the wrong direction. Okay, arrows are not working. All right. If anybody has tips about arrows working, let me know. I'm going the wrong direction. Okay. No matter which way I do it, it's going the wrong way. All right. Maybe I will stop share for a second, go to my correct screen, and then share it. All right. Cool. So when I was talking about the puzzle, in your workbook, there's a place for you if you'd like, or you can get that blank piece of paper to doodle. And I invite you to sketch out, what are the main components of you that you'd want to make sure you shared with a college. And why don't you do some of that, and I'll be quiet and fix this situation. Okay, I invite you to call out or put in the chat some of the components you're drawing about or writing about or sketching about. Okay, some of the things that people typically think about are like family, sports, arts, leadership activities, wellness activities. What are some things? Anybody have a wellness activity that they included in their main section?
I think you'd classify sports as kind of wellness, so basketball.
Awesome. Anybody else have something related to basketball or wellness or sports or?
I've done lacrosse every year of high school, and I was captain of the JV team for freshman and sophomore year, so I think that'd be something good to put on the transcript.
Yeah. Right. So they're wanting to see like what are the things that Thomas or Lisa or any of you would bring to the campus, right? Like yesterday, I was talking to somebody who really loved the AP Chem exam that they just did. And the previous day, I'd talked to somebody who really loved the AP Lang exam and the AP Push exam. A college wants all of those people, right? Like not just Chem people or Lang people, but a mix of people. And they want lacrosse players and basketball players and dancers and people who just like to play video games in their room. And, they want the whole panoply of people. And there are lots of different components of you, right? Not just our activities. There's the quiet times, what you do in those quiet times. It's your insight about yourself. It's your reflection on things that have happened to you. It's all of those things. All right. Anything else somebody wants to add on that, what you're sketching?
I said criminal justice and like psychology and community service.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as you spoke about those things, I was thinking it's really great to start now thinking about what the components are of your story, because I could imagine my first impression is like, okay, here are the things that I'm used to reporting to adults when they ask, what are you interested in? But over time, you might really start to remember deeper things about you that are those really special things about each of you that you're going to bring to a campus. And I invite you to really think about those deeper things, those deeper values that you're going to bring. Cool. All right, well, today in our workshop, we're going to focus on two components of the college application. And remember, in general, we want to be putting together that picture of you, but it has these different must-dos, right, in an application. And so we're going to focus on the personal information and family background section and the activities list. And in future meetings or at the Q&A at the end, we can answer questions about any other parts of this application if you want to. Okay, so our goals for today are to on the first half, launch an application. And we just talked about the purpose of the components of the application and what colleges are looking for in general. We're going to now get into the types of applications, which applications you need to do. And I'd like you today to open an application, ideally the common application, but we'll see what makes sense for you, and to begin completing that. So that's the first section of today. And then the second is about the activities section of the application in particular, what's included in it, why it's important, and in fact critical, and what to write about your activities. I'm going to give you a template for fleshing out your activities list that you're going to work on today and do some of for homework if you have time this week. I know some people have IB exams this week, and so every person has to tailor their homework to what's reasonable. And for sure, doing well in school this spring is more important than getting a head start on your application. So you decide what makes sense for you. All right, so we're going to do this session today, and then there'll be some work to do in the in-between if you can, and then next week we'll continue the work and review what people have to bring, and we'll give feedback on drafts and get to hopefully at least a good draft of an activities list by next time. Okay, so before you open an application account, there are two parts of things that I'd like you to do. Think about which schools are on your draft college list. Now, likely if you're watching this in the spring, or the people who are here, it's spring, and you've got a draft college list, but it's not anywhere near finalized, which is totally fine. But thinking about schools that even might be on your college list, you can research which applications those schools accept. Over 1,000 or around 1,000 colleges and universities in the United States and abroad accept something called the Common Application. And if you've got the slides open or the workbook open, there's a link in there to the Common Application, or you can just Google it too. And then about 170 schools in the United States mostly accept the Coalition application. Some schools accept both the Common and the Coalition. There's only one school that I know of that clients of mine regularly apply to that accepts only the Coalition application, and that right now is University of Washington. I've heard repeatedly that it's just a matter of time before they announce that they're also going to be accepting Common application. So I'm hoping that that'll be true for your class as well, but we'll see. And then the University of California system and the Cal State system and Texas, all three of those states have completely separate, do not use the Common or the Coalition, just use their own application. And that's fine, of course, and wonderful for them, but it makes a little bit more work if you're planning to apply to any of those places. And particularly for California, I've got a whole separate 2-hour workshop that I'm going to offer this summer about that, or as soon as you need it, right? Like I can definitely talk you through the University of California application sooner than later if you'd like. And then there's also a Common Black application that the historically Black colleges and universities accept in addition to the Common application often. And then if you're applying in the UK or United Kingdom schools, there's an application platform called UCAS. And I can also offer a workshop about that if I have a bunch of people interested. If you Google that though, the UCAS system itself has seminars about the UCAS application process. And so there are lots of webinars and online recordings about that. So before we go on, that's the overview of the general types. Are there questions about that? Okay, so the next thing is to talk about where you can find the information about which school does what. Okay, and so all of you have access to Council More. And if you didn't have access to Council More, you can just Google the name of the university or college and application or Common application or Coalition application, or just the admissions section of the website at a school, and it says how to apply, and that would tell you there which kind of application they accept. If you are a member of Council More, which all of you here are, then if you go to the app tracker, it'll tell you which kind of application. And the way you get something on the app tracker is when you're in your list, if you give the school a heart over on the left, it's right at this place, and you give it a heart. The heart means that it goes on the heart app tracker here. And so the app tracker will tell you if they're a Common App member, yes. And if they're not a Common App member, it'll say Coalition application here. So just like I was telling you, University of Washington is a Coalition app, and almost the rest of the ones that are on this list and most people's lists are also Common application members. And again, in your slides and in your in your workbook, there's a link to Council More and to the Common application if you'd like. So that's the first step. In your workbook, there's also a place to a table if you want to fill out names of schools that you're interested in and the answer about what type of application they accept. So I invite you to work on that as I'm talking about other things. Multitasking is no problem for me. All right, so the first is figure out which applications you need. And then the next step before you open an application is thinking about your email address. It's important when you're applying to college and now going forward in your life is to have a neutral email address that has a professional look to it. And so some people create a Google account for this purpose. Maybe you've done that already. But if you haven't, now is a good time to do that. There's a link in your workbook to Google for that purpose. You don't have to, I'm not promoting Google. Google does not pay me. You can use any email provider you want to, but the goal is to have a professional, simple email address. It could be something like first name dot last name at, and then your email provider. And I recommend that as you register for college webinars, as you register for testing going forward, you use this new email address that's particularly for this purpose. Now, if you want to, you could make one just for colleges, right? And you'll see that I did that in future slides that I'm showing you. I made a Gmail address that's just for doing application related things. And the trick is that you need to make sure that it's set to forward to your main account, or otherwise you have a protocol to actually check that account so that you don't have like, you know, Berkeley, since Thomas has got the sweatshirt on, Berkeley emailing you and saying, we want you, you know, and you're never looking at it, right? So do something to make sure that's there. Any questions about the email address piece?
Do you think it's okay to just continue using the one you have if you're like good at like checking it and like keeping everything like, you know, yeah.
Yeah, well, tell me, does it meet this criteria of being a non-school address and personal but professional?
Yes.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, you definitely don't have to open a new one. It's just that not everybody has already done this. So I just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
everybody has done that. Yeah,
Got
thank you, Lisa, for speaking up and asking the question. I really appreciate that. All right, so I'd love you to do this now. Figure out which application you want to start with by looking at schools that you're thinking of and which applications they take. And I'll say this, that Thomas, with your Berkeley sweatshirt, if there's anywhere besides Berkeley that that you're interested in doing today, I would love to have everybody do the Common App today. But if there are people who aren't applying to any Common App schools, then it will totally work to do Coalition App, or even the University of California app if you'd like. But to keep us kind of going on the same track, it would be great if we all found Common App. But I look forward to hearing what people find out. So figure out which application you want to start with and which email address to use. And once you've done those two things, I'd invite you to go ahead and open an application and start completing it. And when most of us have finished 1 and 2, then I'll go on and show the parts of the Common App or the Coalition App, which if that's where we go. And so why don't you do this? Send me a chat either publicly or privately when you've figured out 1 and 2. Okay, and feel free to ask questions to the group or to me. Let me know how it's going. Hey, Lisa, thanks for chatting me. I sent you a response. Oh, you did too just now. Okay. Ooh, Erica just chatted me something that I wanted to tell the Washington applicant people. Um, Kelly just got your chat, thank you. And that Western is actually going onto the Common App. So is Central and Eastern. So all of the Washington schools, except for University of Washington, will be on the Common App um, as of August 1st. So you can fill out the Common App now, and Western doesn't say it accepts it yet because or it's not listed on the Common App yet, but it will be there when they launch the new one. Cool. Great. And so, Lisa, if you want to, for you, go ahead to the part where in the workbook that is talking about fleshing out your activities list in the BB's exercise, that would be appropriate. And it'll take you a while, I think, unless you've already done something like that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Looking to hear, get a chat if you have done 1 and 2. If not, no worries, just. Great. 2. Okay. I am going to put up a Common App. Thomas, what'd you end up thinking, deciding?
I thought I tried to put in my password and it said it was wrong, so I'm just resetting my password right now so I can get actually into Council More. So I'm kind of behind, but I'm trying to get
Oh,
find
okay.
out.
Okay. Let me tell you this. Why don't you just go and open up a Common App account, because I don't want you to spend your whole time trying to get into Council More. I will. um, you will definitely be filling out University of California, so we can work on that. And what's ending up being schools that you are interested in right now?
In California or just everywhere?
Just in general, yeah.
In general, I have. Let me get up my worksheet. I have.
Well, like Swarthmore was on there for you, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
Swarthmore.
Swarthmore is a Common App school, so
Okay.
so
And then
it's worth
UMD
it too.
is always the first one that I do.
Okay, okay,
Mhm.
great. So it'd be worth it to you to do the Common App. Have you started
Mhm.
one like Lisa has, or?
No, not yet.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a good time to do that.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna go ahead and sign in. So you will go. There's a link if you want in your workbook or in the slides for the first page of opening the Common App,
Mhm.
and you'll put in your email address, and I think you create a password. And I've already done
Mhm.
that. So you see that. So you see this is the email that I created for all things college applications, and I was doing it for
Mhm.
financial aid. So anyway, I'll just open this up, and you guys keep working, and I might ask some people to
Okay.
share their screens too.
I have a question. So
Great.
I'm on, what is it, Council More right now, and I do not see the what type of application it takes.
Perfect. Kelly, would you be able to share your screen so I can help other people find that too? You're not the only one.
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. And Thomas, I wonder what we can do about helping you with your password, but you know. Great. Okay, cool. So,
It doesn't have.
right, it doesn't on this one in the list. Yep. And so you see how you gave two schools a green heart, the University of Chicago and the University of
Should I do it
Washington.
to all?
You can if you want to. But
Okay.
that'll be the ticket to showing
Well,
everything. And then when you go over to the tab that has the heart and has the app tracker, do you see at the top? It's got a heart.
Oh, I
Yes.
see. Sorry.
Yeah. I planted you, Kelly. No. I that was perfect for the video to be, showing that that's how you do that, to go into CouncilMore and do that. Thank you so much for following my script and asking that question. So appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So what does it say, Kelly, about those schools? What kinds of applications do they accept?
So U Chicago takes it, NYU takes it, ASU takes it. Obviously, UW doesn't, and
Yeah.
I'm also applying to the UC system, so
Okay,
that's
cool.
gonna take it.
Yeah. So you kind of get the idea that it's not just a one and done thing, right? Like there's the common application, but then depending on which other schools you're applying to, you'll need to put your information in again. So you need to account for some hours that it'll take to plug in your name and your grades and your courses and your activities again, depending on how many different platforms you've got. Okay. Cool. So it seems like everybody's going to be opening or working on a common application account. Lisa, you might not want to do this, so never mind. I was just going to ask you to share your screen, but since it's being recorded, why don't I'll just keep doing it. Okay, how is the starting an account going for people? I know that's kind of a vague question. I would love to, if this were a regular class and I wasn't recording, I would just have you share. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I missed
it's
it.
going pretty well. It's asking me if I'm currently based in a European country, Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland, or the United Kingdom.
Okay.
And I am, but I won't be later when I'm finishing the application.
That's exactly right. So I'm so glad you're doing that. Thank you again for following the plant script. You're thinking about this as if it were October or November of 2022 in this case, or the of senior year if this is a different year. And where will you be then? What will you have done by then? This is what you're filling out for now, because we can save it now and it'll still be available then. And so these are just knocking out some like quote unquote easier parts of the application early. Yeah. Okay, I'll show my screen, and how about this? If you're already past the section where I am, just let me know that in the chat, and because there might be some questions as we go. Okay,
I already
go ahead.
have an account in Common App, so I just
Perfect. Perfect. And how much do you have done in there already?
I think I've put a couple colleges on my list so far.
Okay. And so when you go to my colleges, you can add a college and you can search, right? So you can filter, you can look like, oh, what's available in Australia? And then, no, not the US state. There are schools in Australia. That wasn't the best choice. Okay, Canada. I guess I haven't used that function before, so I better not introduce something I haven't used on a workshop. But this should be a way to find schools that you're interested in applying to that accept the Common App. And so what I have done so far is just put in names of schools, but you certainly can search this way. And later we're going to use a tool called College Kickstart, which will help us find schools that accept the Common App or the Coalition app, maybe don't require a fee, maybe don't have supplemental essays. You can find all of those things here too. And when it says application requirements, that's a summary of the schools that I've already selected, and it has a really nice table that has information about their deadlines and the type of school it is. And so all of this information is also available in your CouncilMore account. But now when I'm looking at all of my Common App schools, I can see, okay, I might want to apply early action to some places. I might want to apply early decision to some places. I probably should have my applications ready by October so that I can hit these November deadlines. Okay, that helps me, that kind of thing. All right. So, but really, you wouldn't have to put any colleges in here in order to do the work that I'm hoping you'll get started today, which is in the Common application. The parts that you can fill out pretty easily is information in your profile, information about your family, information about your education, what school you go to. But part of the information in the education, it will be harder for you to fill out right now because it's about classes and grades from senior year. And so I'm not expecting that you fill out those sections right now. And testing, if you already have scores that you want to put in, great, but otherwise that's something that you can do in the fall as well when you're clear about what you want to put in. So really today, it's getting started on the profile, getting started on the family, maybe a little bit of education. And then later we're going to talk about the activities, but I don't expect you to complete that section today, okay? So, and I don't expect that you have to complete any of these sections today, but it's a good chance to be working on these things. All right, and so let me just go through and see if there's anything that's unusual here. I wasn't actually born in 2007, just want to let you know. All right, that's telling me that I should get to the part that's interesting, and then we'll take a little break. Let's see. Yeah, I wanted you to know that anytime you press continue, you can always go back. Okay, and so as long as before you leave the platform, you save the work that you've done, it's not you're not submitting it. It's not going to be locked forever. It's something that you can do anytime. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions that are coming up for them as they're filling it out? I'm going to tell you this about the Common App fee waiver in case you or you have friends who would qualify. Many schools don't really want to be charging you to apply, and so are very interested in hearing from you if you need a Common App fee waiver or you'd like a Common App fee waiver. It's not like you just don't feel like paying for it, but really if it poses any kind of barrier for any student and any family, there are fee waivers. And if they're not available from the Common App, they're often available from the college or university itself, and they'll give you a code in order to get in here. So don't be afraid of asking for that. So they ask information about your parents, and they are interested in information about their occupation and their education level. And you may know that, but you may not. So you may need to go and talk with your family about this section, parent 1 and parent 2. And if you want to, you can even have them actually fill it out themselves. And if you are a person who has limited information about one of your parents, it's fine to say that too. And then they ask you about how many siblings you have.
For
Okay.
profile, when it asks you how many languages you're proficient in, like if you're taking a language at school, would you just say that language as well?
Yeah, if you feel like you're proficient, like you could go somewhere and speak or read in that language, absolutely.
I have another question about the languages. So technically my first language was Russian, but
Right?
now I know like very little Russian. So
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't technically be proficient in that language, but I have to put if I were to only put one language, it forces me to say that like one language was my first language, but I can't say that for English because that's not true. So would I
Yeah.
just add Russian and then just click the first language part and then not click the speak, read, write? Except I can read, but really, really slowly.
Yeah, I would say you're certainly more proficient than I am.
Okay.
And I do really feel like it's part of your story
Yeah.
too. And so I think it's an important thing to include. And
Okay.
there's no exam associated with listing that, you
Uh-huh.
know, like they're not going to require that you demonstrate it.
Uh-huh.
So I think it would be important to do
Okay.
to list that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anybody have a part on their screen that they want to share that is a particular question or somewhere you want me to scroll to? Okay. I am going to go back to the slides, and soon we're going to get ready to take a break and transition to the next section. I know you probably haven't filled out the whole thing yet, but it gives you a sense of what's ahead. Okay. Was there a question that was being asked that could help other people?
No, I was just kind of being dumb.
No. Okay, wait a second. That's like the classic thing that when you feel like you're being dumb, probably somebody else feels like they're being dumb and they're afraid to ask. So, is there anything that you think would
Well, it was
potentially
really
help somebody else?
I was looking up UC schools on the Common App website,
Ah,
which wouldn't make sense because they don't take like common applications. So that's
right.
why, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, you know, but that is really not dumb. Like, because the thing is that this is brand new information that different schools have different platforms for applying. And so that's the big idea of what we're doing here is like there are the same common components, like you have to put in information about you and your transcript and your activities, but the way that they ask you to put it forward is different depending on the school. And
Mhm.
so these schools, this is a Common App way to do it, but the UC is different. And let's definitely have a whole session about that, Thomas and Kelly and other people who are thinking of doing
Mhm.
UCs. Okay.
I have a question. Why does like Common App want all this information about your family?
Yeah, well, part of it is because it's the picture of you, right? And who you are and what you have to bring. And also is that it's part of their understanding your likely retention at school, right? Like, so people who have parents who did graduate college are likely to stick with college. That said, many colleges and universities are, it's part of their mission to share education with students who are first generation students whose families or whose parents didn't graduate from a four-year university, and they want to be able to track that information, to be able to share out the demographic population of their students and who they're reaching, and it helps them get grants, and it helps them tailor services to students. So they use it all different ways, but this is definitely a major data collection tool for them to be able to share demographics information about who's coming in and how many people they accepted and from what different backgrounds. Great question. Anybody else have a Common App related question? Okay, I'm posting some slides again. So if you want to toggle over, I'm just going to remind you that you can certainly keep working on this during the break, during times that make sense for you in this next week. And by next weekend, if you have time, or certainly you can set a deadline for yourself that makes sense for you, is to have these sections filled out so that I can answer any questions you have that do come up. And if as you're doing it, you make notes about questions that you have for next time when we get together, because I'm sure if you have a question, somebody else has that question too. So do what you can in the sections about profile and family and education between now and next week. But don't worry about putting in the grades part or your current or most recent courses, okay? There definitely will be questions about that. So feel free to look that through if you'd like, and you can certainly start if you want to, but there's no expectation that you should do that, because it's really like for the fall when you will be doing those classes, and you will already have your grades for the year currently. And the other thing is that I'd like you to skip anything about grades and courses. And I wanted to make sure you knew there's a question about community programs or community-based organizations that have provided you assistance in your application process. And you may have that from something at school, but any of the assistance that I'm offering you doesn't count here. So that would, if it's just from me and your high school counselor, you'd put 0 there about that question about community programs or organizations that have provided you assistance, okay? And then, so before you move out of the Common App today, please make sure to click sign out and save your work. And it'll be there for you anytime. And you might need to save your password information so that you can get back in next time. So any questions about Common App stuff? I'm about to head into activities. Okay. Cool. Great. All right, so we've been here about an hour, and so I'd like to invite you to take a little stretch break if you need that. And let's see, I think I already said that. So next up, we're going to focus on the activities part of the Common App. I'll just show you what it looks like. It's here. One, remember that down the left side, it had like family, the profile and education and testing. And another one of the options is activities. And so they ask you this question: do you have any activities that you wish to report? And the answer is yes. Even if your activity is doing the dishes after dinner, or taking care of your younger sibling, or taking out the trash. I mean, whatever it is that you do with your time, yes, you do want to report it, because that's giving the school a picture of you, a part of the puzzle of you. What are the pieces that make the story of you, or the pieces of the pie of you? And so when we come back from our break, we will dig into those activities and how to write about them, okay? And so I'll I'll stop share, and we'll do about, 5 to 7 minutes, come back at 5 minutes after the hour. If you need to run around, if you need to jump, if you need to, whatever you need to do, go ahead and do that. And I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. I might zip out to take a break for 1 or 2 minutes, but then I'll definitely be back for questions. So welcome back. I hope the break was what you needed it to be. Move around a little bit. You want to put in the chat anything that came up during the break, or what you're grateful for today, or what made you laugh during the break, or anything like that. You're welcome to do that. I was thinking, I was going to ask at the beginning of this, what'd you have for breakfast? But then I was thinking, really, Erica, it's like, what'd you have for dinner, right? All the different times we are around. What'd you have for lunch? What'd you have for breakfast? So I had some eggs wrapped in lettuce, because that's the life that I live. And good day today. All right. So I am recording. Great. And good. You've gotten a lay of the land of that we have multiple types of applications, and certain schools expect different platforms. You've opened a common application account if you didn't already have one. You started filling that out. You can fill out a few of the sections this week over time. Just, when you have a break, you can work on that, or even during classes. At least, I don't know, in Seattle Public Schools, I'm not sure that's true in Germany or Philadelphia or Lancaster, or Maryland, but sometimes students have multitasking time behind their laptops in class, and Common Application is an easy thing to be working on during those times as well. Don't tell your teachers I said that, but there you go. So we're going to go on to thinking about the activities section of all of the different applications. Each application has its own way that they want you to share it. And so we don't worry about that right now. What we're thinking about is those puzzle pieces of you, and that big overview of who you want to show yourself to be to colleges, and what are the things that you've done with your time. And I'm completely serious when I say that it doesn't have to be things just organized by school, or organized by an outside organization, or even that sounds impressive. It could be that you love to read and you spend time doing that. It could be that you love to go for hikes and you spend time doing that. It could be that you are of service to your family or your community in some way that you think of as like not actually that important, but it is something that you spend a bunch of your time doing. That would be really an appropriate thing to potentially share. And again, you're thinking about what really helps a college see me, who I am, and who I want to put forward. Not what are all the different little things that I've done that I think a college will be impressed by. They actually can see right through that. They can see right through anybody who's just, trying to do something to do something. They want to know who you are, what makes you tick, and what you're likely to do or be, and what spirit you're going to bring when you're on their campus. And they really want to know you, who you are. And you're fabulous, right? Like you really, there are so many wonderful things about each one of you. I can promise that. And they want to know that. Okay. It's not about really, I promise you, I have been to many, many conversations, classes, webinars, visits with college application readers and college admissions officers around the country, around the world. What they're looking for is authenticity. They want to know like that you know yourself and that you're excited to come to a campus and bring that self there. Okay. And so this next section is going to be thinking about how do we help you write about those things, those ways that you spend your time. All right, so maybe you've got your slides, maybe you've got your workbook available. The workbook is going to be a big part of this next section. So if you don't already have it up, please find that. Anybody have any, let's see, I could probably put the link to it. This is a link to that workbook if you need it. Okay. All right. So let's see what there is to share. All right. So we're going to go. All right. On the Common App and all of the places, they ask you for activities list stuff. So okay, so I'm wondering if you already have a list of activities somewhere. You might have a resume, you might have a LinkedIn profile, you might have a list on a notebook, you might have no list anywhere. But if you have a list somewhere, I invite you to get it. If you don't, I want you to know that you can log into CouncilMore. And under the student information section, which for you has a little grad cap, under there, if you scroll down, there's a section called participation or participation information. And so if you go there, it's a place that you can list out your activities in general. And it's not like all the fleshy stuff that I'm going to be talking about next, but it's like the big idea of what the name of it was, what the organization was, how long you spent doing it, etc. For now, for my purposes today, if you want to use that, you certainly can. And really all I need you to do is kind of like the buckets of it, right? Like what's the name of that thing? And so you can just be brainstorming. If you want to put it there, awesome. If you've got your paper and your pencil and you want to put it there instead, just make a list, great. If you want to put it in your workbook, type it in there, you can do that too. But basically the idea is just to brainstorm a list or access a list that you already have of your activities. Let's hear from you in the chat if you're brand new to working on this or you've already got some of these things. To show you a new, the next slide is that you might have a LinkedIn profile. If you don't already have a LinkedIn profile, that's something that we can work on together outside of today, or it's something that you might want to work on this week. This is my son, Ezra, so he didn't mind being public. He has this profile on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a social media platform that's specifically for professionals sharing their experience. And if you're like open to work or an internship, this is a place where people will look. And so Ezra put himself on there and it has information about him, but then down below, it basically is a resume where it's got like the different activities that he was involved in, the jobs he's had, etc. And so I invite you, now that you're heading towards college and towards the adult world, to consider creating a LinkedIn account. Or you might have a resume. And if you don't already have a resume, I invite you to consider starting one. This slide set has a link to resume examples. So like if you click on that part of the slides, it'll go to this folder in the shared resources folder that has all sorts of example resumes. So you can see those if you want to. And then this is a template that you could use in this format to fill out a resume if you'd like to. So these are all optional things right now, but I was just connecting this idea of the activities list for college with two other very practical ways that people need to show themselves. LinkedIn profile, resume, those are two additional ways of showing things. Okay, I'm going to see what's in the chat before I go on. Great. Anybody have anything on those topics? Great. Lisa, you've started the activities list a little bit. Have you done that at school? You've done that on your own? Tell us a little bit about it.
Just my friends were doing it, so I thought I'd start it. So yeah.
Yeah. Any challenges with doing it so far?
Just like what I should write in the like describing the activity for some of them. Like, I don't really know how to describe them.
Cool. Well, we're going to go into that. And so I think what we're going to start with is the what of what you did and or what happens there and what kind of impact and what kind of reflection you have. And then afterwards, you can think about how to describe the organization or how to describe the technicals of it. Okay. So I think you're at a great place then if you haven't already marched all the way down it. Anybody else have anything they want to share about that? Okay. So what we're going to do is this values exercise, and it's at the very end of the workbook, not the homework sheet, but the page before that. You'll see something that looks like this. And I'm going to invite you to think about your top values. And so you can scan through this on the slides. It's 2 pages. In the workbook, it's just 1. And why are we thinking about values at the same time as we're thinking about activities? It's because, in that puzzle of you or the story of you, what becomes clear is that it's really obvious what's important to you. And if you don't think about it in advance, the colleges might see other values, right? They might see busyness, they might see anxiety, they might see anxious to pleaseness. But if you think in advance about what are my core values, what's most important to me to share, then that intentionality will help you show those values through your whole application and particularly through your activities list. So I invite you now to bold the 10 values that you connect with most from the list. If you're using a computer and if you're doing it on paper, shade or circle those top 10 values. Okay, I invite you to put some of your top 10 in the chat if you'd like. Some of my top 10 are vulnerability, empathy, interdependence, authenticity. I could keep going on. Anybody want to share any of their top 10?
I said, one second, helping others, diversity, adventure, health and fitness, humor, meaningful work, independence, community, respect, and belonging. But it was really hard to choose because a lot of them,
Yes,
a lot
right?
of them do value. So
Yes. And sometimes you can think about some like overlap, right? Like going over those 10, like are there some that connect to each other? Are they completely distinct or not? Anybody else have ones they want to share? It looks like there's something in the chat. Personal development, diversity, global awareness. Nice. All right.
I found it great that sleep was listed as a value. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, family, travel, adventure, fashion.
Yeah. That's great. I love sleep too. It's a really good one. And I'll just say that that's an important one thinking about this next year for you, right? Prioritizing sleep, each of you. Awesome. Okay, so I invite you to now underline your top 5. And if that's super easy for you, then go on to italicize your top 3. And ultimately, if you have one that's feeling like your number 1 today, feel free to put that in red or indicate in some way. So this is challenging. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It's just for today. Tomorrow's values might be different. But today, what are your top 5 values? And then your top 3. Okay, how hard was that? Are you still working? Need some more time? Trying to read you guys. I can't read you.
I'm done. I'm ready.
Done, Lisa's done, but how about other people? Purpose. Ooh, nice. How about, yeah, if people want to throw in their number 1s for today, and
I'm
remember,
still
it's just for
holding
today.
and underlining.
Yes, right? And yeah, right, you could ponder a lifetime. Ooh, some respect, some balance. Nice. Purpose, respect, balance, pondering, time, not being rushed. All very valuable. Cool. All right. I invite you to continue to think about it. It's okay, right? Don't feel rushed for me, but I'm going to go on because of time. But I invite you to keep doing that. All right. So it might feel abstract to you, but I'm going to invite you to think about the activities, the ways you spend your time, and how those are connected to your values, right? If it's purpose, it's respect, it's balance, how do those things show up in the ways you spend your time? And so what I would like you to start today and do some more of between today and next time we meet is fleshing out each of your main activities, right? When you really think about like, what are the big ones that you want a college to make sure to know a bunch about? These are the ones that probably will be fruit for writing about in essays, they're like activities that mean something to you. I'd like you to use this exercise. It's called the BB's exercise, which means nothing, and it'll be potentially hard to remember, but what it stands for is best extracurricular activities brainstorming exercise I've ever seen, the BB's. And I have gotten this from my work with Ethan Sawyer, who is called the College Essay Guy. I invite you to check out his website and all of his different videos and things. I've done a lot of training with him. And he named this the BB's exercise. And I thought about calling it something else, because it's such a ridiculous name, but it's the way I know it now. This is the BB's exercise, and now you guys will know it too as the BB's exercise. So I have found that students who really take this BB's exercise seriously end up with way better applications than kids who don't do it. Okay, so I really encourage you to spend time fleshing this out. Yes, it'll help you with your activities list, but more importantly, it'll help you with your, first of all, your self-discovery of that coherent narrative of you, the puzzle of you, and it'll help you write your personal statement. It'll help you write any supplemental essays for having gone through this exercise, okay? So this is in your workbook. There's this template. There are 5 of them. If you're going to want more than 5, just make sure to make a copy of the blank one or the template in order to have as many as you need. And it takes a little while to fill out each one thoroughly. So give yourself some time and don't rush yourself, and take that time. So this first column is where you list out what you did, and the key to that section is active verbs. So there is a really cool list of activities list verbs that there's a link to in your workbook, and I'll show you an example. What you want to do here is lead with the verb and then explanation, verb, explanation, verb, explanation. So lots of action focus. The next column is about problems that you solved. They could be any level of problem, right? I mean, it could be something virtuous, like getting food to people who need it, but it could be also personal, like physical wellness, that you wanted to increase your muscle strength. And so that was you had weaker muscles than you wanted, and that's the problem you solved. So it could be any kind of problem. And then lessons learned connected to those values, potentially, like that you're in your 10 values. Is there one of your 10 values that could be connected to that? And are there other lessons or takeaways, ahas that you had? And then the next column is the impact that you had. Super important. If you have numbers and quotes to support your bullet points, great. If it's just things that you remember, that's also totally fine. But I remember working with a student this last year, and I said, she led a campaign to collect period products for students in schools. And I said, do you have any numbers associated with that? Like how many products you gathered? And she didn't immediately have that, but she went and did the research and came up with it. And it was several thousand, like I'm going to say, 40,000 different items that she collected with a team. She led a team to do that. And 40,000 is like a really impressive number, and it jumps off the page. And so the activities list, when you're ultimately doing it for a college app, you're trying to grab people's attention. And so as specific as possible you can be, that's really helpful. And then this last column, you may or may not have that right now, and it may take a little while to think about how you applied what you learned. Thomas, I see your hand. Awesome. Go for it.
Yeah, so I was wondering for activities, if I were to put like lacrosse, would I make a different activity for each year I did it, or would I make all 4 years the same activity?
Generally, it would be all 4 years unless there was something particular about the year. Unfortunately, on these applications, you're limited in the number that you put on there. And so it could be like lacrosse and, we can talk more specifically, but think about, for these purposes today, think about lacrosse altogether, and what you did could be lots of different years worth of doing, right? And see where it goes. Doesn't have to be short today. So flesh it all the way out. Yeah, good question. Any other good questions like that? All right, let's see an example. Okay, so here's an example of, there are two examples in your in your workbook. You'll notice on the what I did, this person rode, they attended, they supported, they placed, they spent, and it keeps going down, other things that they did. And then it says other things. And in there, what I did, they added in some quantifiables too, right? Rode for 3 years, 9 seasons, countless hours, etc. That maybe addresses your question, Thomas. So they led with the verb, and I find it really helpful that they bolded the verb too. These are the problems that they solved, right? From personal things like too skinny and unfit, to stereotypes of Asian people, to learning routines, right? So it can be very personal. It doesn't have to be global, like solving world hunger or anything like that. Lessons that they learned, that they'll succeed if they put enough attention to any endeavor, need patience, etc. The impact on others, started to pay attention to eating, met friends outside of their original circle, started to love nature. And then how they applied it, they were able to sleep better, they had confidence, they became more careful about time management, and actually changed the definition of living. My goodness, that makes me wonder, ooh, I want to know more about that. So let's do what's called a values scan right now. You just did that exercise of looking for your top 10 values, and then your 5 and your 3 and your 1. If you were doing a values scan of this person's BB's exercise about rowing, what would you say are their top values? Go ahead and put them in the chat or unmute and share. Lisa's saying that nature is a top value. Anybody see nature in there or anything else in there? I see teamwork jumping out at me. So it could be, yep. Oh, Tessa and I are thinking that too. Perseverance. Nice, Erica. I was also wondering about physical fitness, right? Or personal body wellness, things like that. Ooh, Lisa, challenges. And maybe like persevering through challenges. Thomas says stability. Yeah, cool. Great. You guys are getting the idea. Okay, so this table is also in your workbook, and this is a list of questions that you could ask yourself when you're thinking about listing out your activities. Did I list all of my tasks? Did I list things that I did that might have been outside of the scope, all the way to what might I do differently next time? What skills did I develop, etc. So as you're doing your BB's exercise, these are questions to ask yourself. All right, so what I'd like to do is give you 8 minutes or so, which maybe isn't quite long enough, but we'll have some Q&A. But if we don't need Q&A time, you can just use the rest of the time to do this. To have you use that workbook template, or you can write it out on paper if you want to, and start fleshing out your activities in a BB's exercise. Questions about that? Okay. Why don't you feel free to jump in, unmute, or put things in chat if you come up with questions on the way, and just have some time to work now. Okay.
For activities, if like the activity you do, like say I babysit, but it's very like inconsistent, it doesn't happen like every week. It like happens like, well, sometimes it's like like a few times every week, but other times it's like once a month or whatever. So for the Common App, what would you put for like hours spent per week and then weeks spent per year?
Yeah. So these are really good questions. And for sure, for next time, we'll spend some more time on this. And so, Lisa, thank you for asking it. In general, what you want to do is come up with an average, because they don't really care like week to week how many hours you're spending on it. But you think to yourself, okay, in the month of May or in the month of June, it'll probably depend, right? Maybe you babysit more in the summertime than you do in December. But take a December, take a June, take an August. How many hours do you typically do in those different months? And then average them across the year. And so that is one way to do it. Another is to say that you know, because they ask about months a year, right? So if, let's say, you nannied just for the summer and you nannied full time in the summer, you would put, you know, 2 or 3 months a year, 40 hours a week, right? So it just depends on if it's an activity that goes over the whole year, then you go for more like an average. If it's concentrated, then you do a reflection of what actually happened. But again, they're just trying to get a sense of you and what you do and how much you do something. The issue of babysitting is if that's something that, like, when you're thinking about all your activities and you're finding yourself having to winnow the activities to put together, you know, that coherent picture of you, you just think about which are the ones that are most important to me, which are the ones that most connect to those key puzzle pieces that I sketched out at the beginning of the session today, which are the ones that help me tell the story of who I am and how I spend my time and my values, right? So if like respect is your number one value for today, you know, who, I don't know what your other values are. I could probably find them in the chat. But which are the activities that show that? And if babysitting is the thing that shows that, then awesome. And if that's a key piece of who you are, connecting with your community, young people, families, then awesome. But if it's something that you do that doesn't feel as important to you, then you don't even need to include it, right? So those are all the different things to think about there. Cool.
Okay.
2 great questions so far. Thomas, I realized that we weren't recording that great demo that you did, so I might have to ask you to stay around and do that demo again. Okay. We have just a couple minutes left. What kinds of questions are coming up for anybody about the topic, about homework, about accessing things? Nothing? Okay. Well, going forward, this time next weekend, not everybody can join, but most of you will be able to join, I think, for at least this time or another time. The sessions are at, you know, I'm going to list these times in Pacific time. I know most of you are not in Pacific time, but 10 a.m. And 4 p.m. on the Saturday are both of the virtual. So for East Coasters, 7 p.m. and 1 p.m. And Germany, I believe you're traveling, right? So not going to be joining.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
great. So what we're going to do next time is, like, I'm not going to introduce much new content. It's going to be going over actual drafts of BB's lists, activities list, Common App sections. So we can certainly do that independently any other time too. And we will record that, so people who aren't able to join will be able to watch that later. All right. Any questions about the homework? And again, I know all of you are like super good students and you like to do the homework completely, but I want you to know that this is homework on top of school, and school is absolutely the priority right now. And I know that many people have athletic events going on and performances and end of year activities. And so do what you can, right? Like even just being here today, you got the big pieces of what I needed you to understand in going into this college application period. And so even if you can't do any homework, you're a success, and coming next time, there'll be more time to work on this, and we'll get it done one step at a time. If you can do some work in the interim, that will be super helpful to the rest of us too, because you can bring your examples and we can go through them together. And so that would be great, but also not required. So let me just put on the screen the homework again, and then we will move to wrapping up. Do you see the activities list? That's not what I meant to show. This, very good. Okay, so this is what we're going to do next time. It's what I just was talking about. And then again, the homework, the activities list draft, just make sure you listed out all of the activities that you might want to include. You might not end up including all of them. Your BBs for at least 3 or 4 activities, ideally, more if you'd like, less if you can't fit it. And your common application draft, filling that out more in the sections that we discussed. Okay, I really enjoyed being with you today. Thank you so much for your engagement, for showing up on the screen, for participating in the chat, for unmuting, for asking your questions when you felt like you were silly, and for sharing your values and your ideas and yourself. I really am enjoy working with you. And if you can, if you need anything during this week before we see each other again, just feel free to reach out, text, email, anything. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the video recording just for a minute anyway. Okay. I'm resuming Great. So Thomas, you had a question. So we were at that question section. Oops. Well, oh my goodness. Interface is not working. You had a question about how to access what type of college application each college had, and you showed this. You logged in to CouncilMore, and then I think we should also do that whole other thing too. So, but you got into CouncilMore, you went to your grid, and then you went to the college list. And how did you add a college? Will you show me that again? You go to that.
You go
gold. Go ahead.
I just looked up Maryland. I guess I can add another one. California Institute of Technology.
There you go. You have low expectations for yourself. And then, so you're going to give it a rating. You clicked on the gray heart, and you're going to turn it green so that it shows up in your app tracker, which is the lighter blue in the middle tab. And then it shows up there. And can you hover over, common app member? Yes. So it shows that Caltech and Maryland take the common app. Will you go back to your list and add the UC Santa Barbara to give it a heart?
Oh, wait, whoops.
That's okay. That's great. See, this is the summary that CouncilMore offers. And so I think you need to click on the list tab again. Is that what happened? No, that doesn't work. Okay. How about back? Oh no, it did work. Okay, cool. Great. And then you go give it a rating. And then now in the app tracker, great. It says common app member, no. And interesting, because with the coalition app, it said that it was a coalition app. Here, it doesn't say that it doesn't tell you what, but I'm going to telling you and everybody who's listening that the University of California system has its own application, and that application goes to all of the UC schools, not the Cal States. They have their own application, but all, Santa Barbara and Berkeley and UCLA, Merced, Irvine, Riverside, I could keep going, Davis, and San Diego. It goes to all of the same ones. Each school has its own little sections where they ask you to choose your major your intended major. And some of them ask about which house or college you'd like to be part of. But otherwise, all of your short essays, which they call personal insight questions, are the same across schools. So when you're writing about yourself, you're thinking, okay, everybody's getting it. So cool. Can we go to the files also and see what was there? Okay, that didn't end up getting shared. So will you go to click, okay, so you have this document in your Google Drive, but
Yeah.
will you toggle back to CouncilMore for a second? Yep. And then go click on the thing that says Drive, will you? It doesn't click for you. Okay. So for me, that does. Well, when you go to the gold ringed circle, okay, upload file. What happens? Okay. So, oh no. So will you go to open student folder?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It should open up in Google Drive. Huh.
This is the account that it was on, so.
Yeah. Okay. This is good. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it needed to reconnect to Google. Okay, and so let's go to your Google Doc and show again what you did in order to get it in there. Okay, so you had your, yep, good. I think, yep, you went to File, and then you went to Make a Copy. We won't do the whole thing, but we'll just show what you did. Okay, and so you had clicked on that folder. It originally said My Drive, but you went, maybe toggle backwards and let's get to where it was. If that makes sense. So you go to that top, oh yeah, no, go to the top left, to the left of your name, yep, that.
Oh, there we go.
And it, yeah, so it originally said that, your My Drive, so let's reset that. Press My Drive, say select. Yeah, good. Okay, so that's where it was. And so now so if that comes up, you click on My Drive because you're going to move it. You click on the arrow to the left of the words My Drive. And that helps you find the other places. And then under Shared with Me is where your shared Google folder is. And the one that is called your name, for everybody, that's true. Your CouncilMore folder has your first name and your second name. So you click there. And then since it's already shared, select isn't giving you, it doesn't give you the chance to select it, but otherwise for everybody else that will show up blue in the bottom right hand corner, and you click select, and then that document will show up in that shared drive. So like we saw. Cool. So thank you so much. So what I was saying about that was if people have anything that's in Google Docs that's related to college applications or work that we would be doing together, I would love to see it in our shared folder so that I can be supporting. So thank you. Any questions come up as we were redoing that?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. I'm going to pause. Okay, and so that was our first session of Launch Your College Application, part 1 of the workshop, and I look forward to seeing folks next week. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I think I'll put up our last slide. That's not it. I'm going to show off my slides sharing skills. Here it is. All right, so for next time, we've got those things. This is the homework. And I did have there we go. So please reach out if you have any questions or want to be in touch with us about college admissions counseling in any way. Sarah Leonard at 7 Points Prep and Brennan Ford at 7 Points Prep, and also at schoolingdoula.com. Look forward to hearing from you and see you next time. Bye-bye.